Hi and welcome to another Warhammer YouTube video. I want to excuse because it haven't been easy for me to find time to do anything because I had a lot to work and a lot to do and stuff like that. But I want to do a short video about how to be a good sportsmanship. And the first thing you really need to think about is the context you play in. Because if you play in a tournament, especially in a competitive tournament, you know that your opponent gonna be competitive, and then you should be so too. So you shouldn't feel too bad if you didn't let your opponent do something that he forgot. For example, move a unit, if he forgot that in the movement phase and stuff like that, then you shouldn't feel like any pressure of actually letting him do that, because you're in a tournament, you should know the rule. But if you play a friendly game with a friend, especially if there is a beginner's player, you should basically, I think, be nice to them and allow them to do mistake. For example, I met an Empire player recently, and he deployed his Hellblaster, and he thought that he could move through the forest, but you actually cannot move a war machine through a forest. So he got the first turn, so in his first turn's movement phase I let him redeploy the Hellblaster to another position, just to not be a douche, so to say, because it was a friendly game, it didn't really matter. So you can, well, cut them some slack, especially if they are a beginner or in a friendly environment. And the next thing you should think about is talk how competitive you wanna be in the game, because if both of you are preparing for a tournament, there can be a certain value that you both actually be very hard on the rule, because in the tournament, as I told you earlier, the player can, well, not allow you if you forget something, for example. So if you're preparing for a tournament and both players know that, then then you can be hard against each other. That's really no problem. Or if you just tell your opponent that you are preparing, so you actually talk to your opponent before the game starts and tell him what kind of context you want to play the game in. And another thing you should do before the game is talk about your list, because you should always think about your list, especially in an uncompetitive environment. For example, every army can build this hard-ass list, like the Scream Vampire Count list, the Witch Elf Highborn with double Warlock, Dark Elf list, the big Death Star list in Ogre, and so on and so on. List that basically, if your opponent didn't bring a very hard list, is very hard to beat. So you should think about that. Think about it from your opponent's point of view. Would I enjoy to play this game, or would my opponent, or would myself just feel sad because I can't do anything in this game? I cannot kill him, I cannot even win, I cannot even play. It would be very, very tragic to see that kind of a game, and it's not a fun game for either the one who crushes his opponent and the one who gets crushed. So that's a good point to think about how you build your list, especially if you have a very high army like demons, dark elf, high elf, so on, that is very brutal. And well, if you play beastman or Bretonnian, oh well, we don't care, we can do whatever we want because our armies are so far behind. We cannot really do that hard a list anyway, so we don't have to worry about that. And well, using the comp is another good way to try to balance your list. So if you came to a store and you have your beastman with you and tell your opponent, I have a comp Swedish 19 list, and your opponent tells, oh, I have a comp 1 Horse of Chaos list, then you would know directly that his list will probably eat your list alive. And especially if there is an unusual army you're playing and you don't really know that, you just see a chaos army on the board, for example, and you don't know the chaos army, and then it tells them, oh, this is a comp 15 chaos dwarf army, then you would know, for example, that my comp 15 high elf army is a pretty even match against that. So then I can just play, I don't need to do any adjustment. But if he would say this is a comp 1 chaos dwarf list and you have your 19 comp beastmen, you can play, but you're probably gonna get eaten alive. So comp is a very good way to try to even out the score and try to see if your opponent have a better or worse or list than you, or if it would be a fun and even game, especially if you don't know your opponent's army. The next thing is, in Warhammer we have certain rules and all of those rules can be broken. For example, you can do the conga line, you can do the character wall, you can do the shaft, you can do a lot of things that Games Workshop did not intended when they wrote the rules. And in general, I think it also depends on the context. In a tournament, of course, you should use those rules because everybody else does it. In a friendly environment, I don't know, I'm not so sure about it. I myself, I know I can do some shitty maneuvers, but it's for myself, it's a compensation because I play the Bretonnians, for example, and I meet demons, I meet Warriors of Chaos, I meet Dwarf, I meet Skaven, so I think then it's okay to do it. If I would play Demon or Dark Elf myself, then I wouldn't have any friends left to play with because they would just leave. So you should all think about this. Maybe even if you're in a friendly environment, just take your time and show your opponent, oh, you can do this maneuver to make your unit into that building, for example, or you can do this maneuver to get a flank charge on me next turn, for example. So you just try to learn your opponent how to do those kind of maneuver, and if you both are equally aware of the maneuver you can do, then it basically isn't such a bullshit for anybody anyway, so then you can just go for it. I think it's more fair. And well, the final advice for me is that you should play a game and then try to have empathy for your opponent and see it from his eye. Do you think your opponent would like to play a game with you again? Do you think your opponent would like to go out and have a beer with you after the game? That's a good question to ask you when you go into a Warhammer game, that you're just trying to be a nice guy. And well, that is what I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice evening.